This week's podcast is supported by Whitney Antiques, an antique shop in the heart of Oxfordshire specialising in historic needlework. If you would like to know more about Whitney Antiques, check out their website at www.whitneyantiques.com. Hello and welcome back to Unearth the Past, a podcast that delves into the lives of interesting people. So it's been a few weeks since my last podcast, and thank you for all the amazing feedback, by the way, from Mitch's podcast with his lovely mum Jack. Hopefully I've responded to everybody, and I know a few people have been in touch asking about how they would go about finding unknown parents, and hopefully I have responded to everybody, I think, by now. So yes, thank you for the feedback. It's been amazing. I took a bit of time off, had to have a minor operation, but the stitches are out and we are all good to go again. So on this week's podcast, I am joined by a comedian and an actor. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, the extremely funny John May. John May, thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's all right, anytime. So I contacted you tonight and I said, do you want to come on my podcast?
Yes, just out the blue.
Just out the blue.
Seems like a lifetime away now.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It's took a while, this, hasn't it? This family tree, which we'll talk about in a minute.
It's been an adventure.
It has been an adventure. I've aged. Compared to a lot of people that come on this podcast, you knew a bit about your family tree because, weirdly, one of my old lecturers had written a book.
Oh, yeah. I wonder where you were going with that then.
Did you?
Yeah, there's a book called Life on Attle Street.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to have a copy at home. And it's like, it shows my dad's family, the Moors who come over from Ireland.
Yeah.
So there's like this book. It's got me granddad in there as a little boy. My great-great-grandmother, she's like a proper battle axe, that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, and it just shows them in like the is it like the 1920s?
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, boss.
Now, before we actually delve into your family tree, right, I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about you. So how did you get involved then in the comedy? So I know you from the comedy side. I also know you're a brilliant actor. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I've been an actor for about 15 years, and I've done like loads of commercials, like bits on the telly, films and what have you. And like just before lockdown started, I just started messing around doing like comedy videos on Facebook and what have you. And like I've done this sketch with these two women, because like I compared getting ready for like the lockdown, like Christmas,
right?
Like you're all done for lockdown. Yeah, I'm gonna get a few bits. You know, like,
yeah.
So I just done this sketch and it just went mad.
Yeah.
To the point where like I'm selling venues out. I sold the Olympia out in Liverpool 2 nights in a row, like just after lockdown. It's just sell out shows. Everything was great. It was like, what the hell? So yeah, first and foremost, I'm an actor.
Yeah.
But you've got to carve your own path, because otherwise I'm waiting around for other people to give me a nod or give me a. So I'm using comedy as a way to navigate to where I want to be. So I'm probably a by far better serious actor than a comedian.
Anyway, let's delve into your.
Come on, I can't wait.
Because
we're doing all the pleasantries. Let's just cut to the chase.
So we're going to start then on your dad's side of the tree.
Go on.
And we're going to start with your dad's mum.
Okay.
Who you know as
Peggy,
Margaret Carney.
Mm-hmm.
And
allegedly.
Here we go. Right. So I have a copy of Margaret's birth certificate, which I can show you if you would like.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
I hope he's got his readers on.
Margaret, girl, William Carney.
So William Carney is the dad.
Elizabeth Carney, formerly Dowdall.
Yeah.
Why is her name down as Carney? Ship watchman. William Carney, father, 18 Luton Street.
Yeah. So.
Is there something in there?
Well, Where do we start?
I think it's funny that her name's Carney.
Now, I'm not going to jump ahead here, right? So I'm going to do a few. I'm going to take a step back. So I've got her birth certificate. Now, her birth certificate says that she's called Margaret Carney. You know her as Peggy. Her dad is William Carney. Mum is Elizabeth Carney, formerly Dowdall. We know her as Dowdall, but Dowdall, interchangeable. Dad is a ship watchman. He was present at the birth, and he was the informant. So he went and filled out this birth certificate. And they lived at 18 Luton Street. We know, folks, this is a lie.
Let me just get one thing straight here, right? Me and Michaela, like Michaela's doing the family tree and stuff like that, but we've become pals over this.
Oh,
we've spent hours on the phone.
Yeah.
I've went to family members, tried to get little bits and stuff like that, but I don't know anymore now.
So I'll fill you in.
Yeah, I knew this bit.
So we knew of this guy called William Carney, right? And we heard a story, I think, from your side of the family. Someone said that we think William Carney died in the docks.
Yes.
And then somebody else came and sort of looked after the family.
When Peggy was 7, another man come along.
Yeah. But the key to sort of solving this mystery was 18 Luton Street, the address. So I managed to look at the address on the electoral register, and I've got a fairly comprehensive picture of who was living at the address. William Carney never lived at 18 Luton Street, but Elizabeth Dowdall did. As Peggy, Margaret, was born in the September of 1922, Elizabeth Dowdall, Margaret's mum, married somebody else that same year in the March. So she would have been, we've worked it out, probably about 2 months pregnant when she marries another man. And
so you'd think, pregnancy, we'll have to get married.
Yeah.
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 That makes sense, I suppose.
That totally makes sense. The only thing is, the man she marries is not William Carney. She marries another man. I hope you're following along. She marries somebody called Kane.
William Kane.
William Kane. And she lives with a Mr. Kane right up until this Mr. Kane dies in 1927. No mention of William Carney at all. Even on official records, she never calls herself Elizabeth Carney. She doesn't even call herself Elizabeth Kane. We do know that Elizabeth does have 3 other children before she has Peggy, John's gran, Margaret. The dads to those children, we don't know who they are, right?
I think she's been a bit of a loose woman, hasn't she, Michaela?
We just don't know who they are.
Also known as a goer.
We just have no idea who they are, because they're not on, the dads are not listed on the birth certificate. That's right, isn't it? So we're not quite sure who the dads are. But what we do know is that on the 1921 census, this is before Margaret Peggy is born, she lists herself as a widow. So she implies that she's been married, but I can't find that she was ever married before. And when she does marry William Kane in the March of 1922, she's listed as a spinster. So she states that she's never been married. But on the 1921 census, she calls herself a widow. Make of that what you will. We are as confused as you, but we're just going to keep going. I then thought, I'm not getting anywhere with the paper records. I'm going to have to go to the DNA.
Well, like about you missed the other fellows. Henry?
Oh, yeah, right. I just didn't want to confuse the audience. Right, okay. So she marries William Kane in the March of 1922. She does live with a Kane, and there is a Kane listed at 18 Luton Street throughout, but he is called Henry Joseph Kane, not William Kane.
Which we think might be the same person.
We think could be the same person. Interestingly, when she marries him in the March of 1922, when she marries this William Kane, she's 35, he's 68.
She was after us, though.
We didn't get anywhere, did we, with the paper records? And this went on for weeks, by the way. We were like to-ing and fro-ing.
There was William Kane, there was Henry Kane, there was William Carney, and I say, who's the daddy?
That was a question you went to sleep at night, didn't asking yourself.
We've been on the phone for hours.
Trying to work through it.
Has she murdered them? Has she done this?
Yeah.
We thought all kinds.
All kinds. Did she marry you for insurance purposes? We didn't know.
I said about me auntie, didn't I?
Yeah.
She seen her grandmother, which was Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Dowdall. And she was getting called Mrs. Carney in the post office. And she was like, why is she getting called Mrs. Carney? So she was up to something. She was a scammer. She was doing something.
John thinks she was a scammer, but we have no proof.
Yeah, I think...
We don't know, do we?
It's all right. She's dead now, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, she was defo claiming money. She wasn't meant to, I reckon.
You'd done a DNA test, but obviously, as I talk about a lot on the podcast, that you get 50% of the DNA from your mum, 50% from your dad, 25% from grandparents, and it gets less as you go back. However, your uncle, who is Margaret Carney's, Peggy's son, had also taken a DNA test. So I used his DNA to try and work out who the missing grandparent was, because he is closer related. So the DNA is just a bit stronger. There was also something else we couldn't explain in your ethnicity breakdown.
See, I don't know anymore now. This excites me now.
This is all new.
I'm all ears.
Now, your ethnicity breakdown suggests that you are 48% island.
Okay.
26% Wales. 24% Scotland.
How many? What?
24% Scottish.
24% Scottish?
Yeah. And 2% Sweden and Denmark.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, clearly.
Now, we can actually go a bit further, right? So we can actually say what side of the tree this has come from.
Okay.
On your dad's side, you are 33% island, 17% Welsh.
Okay.
On your mum's side, you are 15% island, 9% Welsh, 24% Scottish,
Wow.
and 2% Sweden and Denmark.
I've always felt at home in Scotland.
Well, that's why.
So, well, yeah, didn't expect that.
Did you not?
Not Scottish at all.
Did you think it would be predominantly Irish?
I thought it was pretty much Irish, yeah. I had a feeling about the Welsh because of Davies and stuff, but Scottish, okay.
Is that interesting for you?
It is interesting. I think this is going to be the little red herring, isn't it? I think this is the red flag.
This is...
Who's the daddy?
So that is your ethnicity breakdown. Now, when I looked at your uncles, the Welsh side on your dad's side was stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I was able to do, I was able to go through your uncle's cousin matches. That's everybody that he shares DNA with. And on your dad's side, I was able to basically put them into two camps, right? The Dowdall camp, so everybody that's on the Dowdall side, and the non-Dowdall camp, the mystery person camp. And I think on your dad's side, that's where the Welsh comes through. I potentially think, and we don't know this because we'd have to test somebody closer, and there wasn't, on the non-Dowdall side, there wasn't as many matches as the Dowdall side.
Okay.
That just potentially means not many people on that side have taken a test.
The mystery side.
On the mystery side. But you did have some that shared DNA, and that seemed to link back to a Welsh family called Evans.
Good Welsh name, that's strong. Strong Welsh name.
I then looked at everybody on that side, trying to find a common ancestor that you are descended from, that I couldn't place within your dad's family tree, to think about potentially who could it be. We don't know for definite. As I say, we need more people to test. We'd have to test somebody closer, but who could it be? And there was a guy who was living in the area at the time. Mm. His family had moved from Wales. He was working on the docks. So I can place him in the Liverpool area. He is the right age, so he would fit the profile, and he was working on the docks at the time, and we know he was living there. We know that you share DNA with that side of the family because you've come up with cousin matches.
So this guy is a strong candidate?
He is, yeah. But he's not Carney, he's Evans.
Oh, so his name's Evans?
There's a Welsh element to your tree that we can't place.
Okay.
And you are definitely related to the Evans side. The Evans doesn't fall on the Dowdall side, so it is on the side we don't know of. And yeah, it's looking pretty strong that it is an Evans. We'd have to test.
Evans?
He never married and he never had any children. So
I
he
just
never
think it's
married,
mad that my
never had any children.
nana's mum, she's probably had a one-night stand with someone, and 100 years later, you've pinpointed the guy, potentially.
Now
It's a revelation.
It's a bit of a revelation. Now I'm going to stick with the Dowdall side.
Okay.
Now Elizabeth Dowdall had a brother, and he was called Henry.
Mm-hmm.
And Henry was born in 1888, so he was 3 years younger than Elizabeth.
1888.
1888. Now, when World War I started, he would have been about 27.
Okay.
And I found an article relating to him in the newspaper that I thought I'd show you.
Really?
Yes.
So this is my nana's uncle, isn't it?
So this would be your nana's uncle.
And what year is this?
So this is 1917, during World War I. So I'm going to pass this article. If you can just read it out loud, you don't need to sort of read it all, but if you can just give us a sense of what it's saying, that'd be great.
Oh, Liverpool defendant fined £15. That would have been a few bob.
Yeah.
Edward McGrath, provider dealer of Milford Street, was summoned before the Liverpool Stipe
Court.
theory
Yeah.
yesterday for having employed a man who was an absentee without leave. Oh, God. Within the meaning of the Reserve Forces Act 1882, defendant was represented by Mr. Muirhead, who pleaded not guilty. Evidence was adduced by Sergeant W.B. Forrester and Henry Dowdall. The man in question had an exemption to May 15th and was called up at May 18th. An extension was given by the recruiting officer to May 31st. The defendant employed Dowdall until the something office got hold of the man July 13th and posted him in the KLR a fine of £15. So he was a bit of a shithouse.
Not quite. So what's happened is he has been given some leave, right? But rather than go back to the King's Lancashire Regiment, which is where he should have been, he doesn't go back. He disappears and gets a job.
Oh, God. So I come from a long line of shithouses.
So he basically doesn't, when he should have been called up, doesn't go back. He gets a job. And then it's found out that he's been employed by somebody when he should have been back. And this person...
He was probably embarrassed about his sister.
Well,
You're probably all giving him jib for being a bit of a, you know...
So that's Henry.
Yeah.
That's Elizabeth's brother. Now, Henry marries a girl called Mary. And they have another son. They have a son, called Henry, which would be Peggy's cousin.
Okay.
His dad, we know, served in World War I. Goes missing, but then does get dragged back. His son would go on to serve in World War II in the Merchant Navy.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, on the 20th of April, 1942, Henry is posted on board a ship called the Avila Star ship, and he's a greaser, which basically means he works in the engine room.
Wow.
He's an engine attendant.
What a job that would have been.
The ship left Liverpool and it headed for Buenos Aires. It left Argentina, should I say, in July, and it had on board a crew of 166. There were 30 passengers on board. 10 of those passengers were women, and the passengers were on board because they wanted to volunteer in World War II. So they were coming over from Argentina, they were going back to Liverpool, and they were going to volunteer. Now, on the evening of the 5th of July, it's just gone dark. There is a warning at this point that potential submarines are spotted around. So what boats are doing at that time, John, is they're zigzagging across the water to try and avoid being detected. But unfortunately, a submarine spots the boat and fires a torpedo. The torpedo hits the starboard side of the boiler room, which is where Henry is working.
Yeah.
As the crew, and it seems quite calm at this point, so the crew and the passengers are managing to get onto lifeboats. But as they're lowering the lifeboats, another torpedo hits the lifeboat.
It's like the Titanic.
And the boat sinks within 20 minutes. 20 minutes. News of this obviously gets back to Liverpool that the boat has sunk.
Yeah.
There are missing lifeboats at this point. And in fact, one of the lifeboats, believe it or not, full of passengers, is on the water for 20 days before it's rescued. Henry's parents are obviously beside themselves. They don't know whether he's on a lifeboat, whether he's been killed, and they don't find out until the September what's happened to him. And they actually take out an advertisement in the newspaper, which I'd like to show you if that's all right. So I don't know if you can read it. There's also a picture of him.
No way. Mr. and Mrs. Dowdall, 1 Newport Terrace, Liverpool 5, have received word that their son Henry Dowdall, a greaser in the Merchant Navy, has lost his life through his ship being sunk by enemy action. He was an old scholar at St Albans School, Boundary Street, and has been in the Merchant Navy a number of years. His parents would be grateful for any information. Wow. No way. So did he die?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he was on one of them boats.
No.
So where is this around Buenos Aires, was it?
Yeah, so this is just off the coast of Argentina. And I think
Incredible.
On another article that I found, when the torpedo hit the engine room, he died in the explosion, so he never made it onto the boats. Henry Dowdall wasn't the only member of your family that worked on board the ship. In fact, all the male members of your family, apart from a couple, tended to work on the docks or on the ships, which I think that's something that maybe you would expect.
Yeah, well, that's where you were from, wasn't it?
Of course, absolutely. So we can actually now go on to the May side of your tree.
Okay.
So
these seem pretty respectable.
So your great-granddad is Bernard May, and he was born in 1888. And he also worked on board the ships. And in 1908, he was employed on board the White Star's Celtic.
Yeah.
And at the time of its launch, and I didn't know this, the Celtic was the largest ship in the world.
Wow. Worked for White Star?
He worked for the White Star Line on board the Celtic. And the Celtic, as I say, at the time when it was launched, it was the largest ship in the world. She could carry 3,000 passengers and 350 crew. And this was luxury, John. I mean, it must have been, you think about the Titanic. This is a few years before that, but
Titanic White Star?
Yeah, the Titanic was White Star.
So this was sort of the predecessor?
Yeah, and there was like the big four, and this was one of the big four. And these 4 ships, every time they released
this is cool.
It was like the biggest ship in the world. This ship had electricity, spacious cabins, a library, a dining room with a beautiful glass roof, a promenade deck, a veranda cafe, a lounge.
So is there any pictures of this ship? I'm going to go home and have a Google of this.
Now, your great-granddad married your great-grandmother, Margaret Mary Moore.
Yes.
On the 28th of December 1911. And their marriage certificate shows that his dad, which would be your great-great-granddad, was also called Bernard. There's a lot of Bernards on this side. This may get complicated. Was also called Bernard. I found Bernard Senior, should we call him? Yeah, your great-great-granddad, on a couple of newspaper articles.
Did you?
Where he actually, believe it or not, receives awards for saving people.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just made me feel dead nice.
So on one of them, he lowered a rope down to the dock and saved a man who'd fell in. When I looked into your great-great-granddad, right, and I wanted to try and find out what he died of, because I knew by 1911, when his son gets married to Margaret Mary Moore, he's deceased. I discovered that he was born in 1859 and he died in 1897. and I have a bit of information that I've found out about his death. So he was employed as a fireman on board ships that were coming in and out of Liverpool.
Okay.
On the 13th of October 1897, just after 6 o'clock in the morning, he is on board the ship, and the ship is called the Gulf of Lions, and it heads off on its voyage. He was paid £3.15 shillings a month, which equates to roughly £320 today. And on the 20th of December, the next time I find the ship, it's docked in Peru. Okay, so it's gone from Liverpool to Peru. Now, while in the dock, Bernard sadly slips from a railing on the ship and he falls into the dock, and that's how he died.
Wow.
He's buried in Peru.
Really? Wow.
But he does have a grave at Ford Cemetery, but he's not actually in it.
No way. How cool's that? Is there anything there in Peru? Or is it just like a...
I couldn't even tell you. I imagine there would be, because he's buried in Peru.
That's mad. Do you know my dad actually fell in the dock as well, Bernard May?
Really?
He nearly died, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the year before we were born.
So
wait there. My great-great-grandfather is buried in Peru.
he's buried in Peru.
That's cool. Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's exotic, isn't that?
Yeah. Do you think, when you...
Isn't it mad, like, you've got no idea about these things? It's cool, isn't it? It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Boss, well in. Yeah.
When you thought, though, you had an ancestor that died in the dock,
Yeah.
do you think that might have been that story that's just got a bit lost down the generations?
Well, my nana was told her dad died in the docks.
Right, okay.
That's a different side. But then the same fella saving people out the dock. My dad nearly died in the dock.
Yeah.
Must have been a common thing.
Well, so this is obviously your great-great-granddad, right? If we go a step further back to your great-great-great-granddad, right? He also died young. I looked into his death and he died at 40.
Go on. Was he another Bernard?
Bernard. Bronchitis.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And a year before he passed away, I found an article relating to his son, which I'm going to show you now, if that's okay. Bernard, your great-great-granddad, who died in Peru, this is his brother. This is relating to his brother.
On the body of Charles, son of Bernard May, a labourer living in 1 Court Clement Street, about a fortnight ago, the deceased, who was between 2 and 3 years of age, was left by his mother playing in the yard when his clothes were by some unexplained means he was so severely burnt that he died. Oh my God. Oh, that's really sad. So he was 2 or 3 and he's caught on fire by accident and died.
Yeah, and then the year after, his dad dies at 40 of bronchitis. We've spoke about your great-great-granddad who died in Peru. And I mentioned to you that he'd saved a couple of people. So we know that he'd lowered the rope down and saved a guy in the dock.
Yeah.
And this was another article relating to somebody that he actually tried to save.
Go on.
I don't know if you can read that out for us.
Drowned while bathing, Mr. C. Aspinall held an inquest today on the body of James McCormack, aged 25 years, a coal heaver who resided with his sister, the wife of a seaman named Campbell, at 8 House, 16 Course, Saltley Street. The deceased and a companion were bathing on the Sunday forenoon in a canal near Lightbody Street Bridge, and when they had been about a quarter of an hour into the water, a cry was raised that the deceased was drowning. Bernard May, a labourer who had been bathing immediately before, took off his clothes and went in to rescue Mr. McCormack, had sunk before he reached the spot. Though May dived several times, he did not succeed in grasping the body, which was afterwards recovered with grapnels. I don't know what they are. The deceased was an expert swimmer. The juror returned a verdict: accidental drowning. Wow.
Yeah, and
he's a right little superhero, wasn't he?
How does that make you feel that he tried on numerous occasions to save people that had fell in the water?
Just proud of him. He's a proper man, isn't he? You know, like he's took it upon himself to be the one who, you know, risks his own life to save other people. Legend.
I'm just going to pick up on another part of your tree now, if that's okay. So we have mentioned your great-great-granddad, who obviously passed away in Peru.
Mm.
And he was...
I love that.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do, yeah. I hope I get buried in Peru.
Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but this will only take a minute, I promise. As many of you know, I'm a proud supporter of the Power of One, an amazing organisation that supports women across the globe who have dedicated their lives to animal rescue. One of these remarkable women is Niang from Jai Dog Rescue in Thailand, who travels 40 kilometres on her motorbike twice a day, feeding around 120 street dogs with homemade food. She does this completely on her own, and she uses her pension to pay for the ingredients. However, in 2023, Niang's bike was beyond repair, and the journey to feed the dogs was becoming increasingly more difficult. That's when the Power of One stepped in. Without your support, they wouldn't have been able to raise the funds needed to get Niang a new bike so she can carry on her amazing work. Now, I know times are difficult, but if you could donate £1, £5, anything, that would be great. But if you can't, please just spread the word about this remarkable organisation. Now, details about the organisation can be found in the podcast description. Thank you so much for listening, and back to John May's family tree. Bernard May, your great-great-granddad, who sadly passed away in Peru. He was married to a lady called Catherine Dempsey.
Okay.
I was able to have a look at her line. Her parents were called William Dempsey, and he was born in 1829. And her mum was also called Catherine, so she was obviously named after her mum. I found a couple of articles relating to her dad, to William Dempsey, and he also was into saving lives.
Wow.
There seems to be a real pattern, John, in your family tree for saving people.
Even though you don't know these people, you have a sense of pride. There's an emotion there. Do you know what I mean? You can feel it. So the following rewards were made to William Dempsey, dock labourer, another labourer, for jumping into the pit 12 feet deep off Stanley New Road and saving a boy had fallen in. Dempsey could not swim. And kept himself up by a plank.
And he got a £1 reward for it, which was a lot of money in those days to do that.
This is great.
Found another article relating to William Dempsey, which tells you something.
He's killed someone now, hasn't he?
Which tells you something a bit about his character. He called it a scratch. I'm going to read this out to you. So about 3:00 yesterday afternoon, a labourer named William Dempsey, who lived in Sherwood Street. Sherwood Street, by the way, plays a real part in your family tree. He lived on Sherwood Street. He was coming down the side of a boat called the Daily Star in Bramley Moor Dock, on which he had been working, when he slipped and his arm caught upon a hook, which inflicted a very serious laceration of the muscles of the upper part of the arm and the shoulder. Between 7 and 8 o'clock, he went to the Northern Hospital to get his injury dressed, and it was then found that his arm was wide open and that it would be necessary to detain him in the institution. When asked why he'd not gone sooner to the hospital, he said he thought it was only a slight scratch.
No way.
But it will incapacitate him from work for some time. His arm was hanging off.
Wow. See, I can relate to him a lot. Like, because I am also tough as old boots.
Well, I'm wondering if you can relate to him in this next article that I found about him.
He's definitely a murderer.
So this was an inquest into his death.
Okay, here we go. Coroner's inquest. Before Mr. Clark Aspinall, coroner of Liverpool, on the body of William Dempsey, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, a dock labourer, 54 years of age, who resided at 26 Sherwood Street. He died early on Wednesday morning. His illness having been brought on by drinking to excess as he was seldom sober a single night in a week. Wow. Yeah, I relate to him. Yeah.
John May came in this morning with a hangover.
I love the way the paper says, drinking to excess. He was seldom sober a single night in a week. Verdict, died from excessive drinking. Well, this is where I get the ADHD from then, isn't it? William Dempsey. I relate to him. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not an alcoholic. No, but it's like, he sounds like a character.
I think that as well. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's like, oh, that, it's only a scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his arm is hanging off. It's that bad. It makes the newspaper. That's how bad it is.
Wow.
It makes the newspaper.
He seems like a funny chap. Bit of a tough nut. Man, he's a proper man's man, isn't he?
I'm going to move on again now, if that's all right. I know we're sort of motoring through your tree today.
You've got some great stories here. That means up. Thank you. Yeah, it's just great, isn't it? I'd never, ever have known this.
No.
Yeah.
I looked as well at your mum's side of the family tree. So on your mum's side, we've got the Hindles, and we've got the Davies, which I think you knew already that those names were in your family tree. I managed to go pretty far back on the Davies side. I think I went back to 1812. Richard Davies, who would be your great-great-grandfather, he was born in Liverpool in 1881.
Richard Davies, okay.
Yeah, he was born in Liverpool in 1881. And I managed to get a picture of your great-great-grandfather.
Did you?
Do you want to see him?
Yeah. Go ahead. He looks very well-to-do.
Very dapper, isn't he?
How the hell have you got this? How? That's amazing. Wow. I don't know.
Should we keep going back? Thank you.
Can I have that?
Of course you can.
This has a weird feeling. This has like a weird effect on people, doesn't it?
Mm. Do you want to see his wedding pic?
These have got dope. Where are these from?
Liverpool.
Is this him?
So that's him with your great-great-grandmother.
They've had money then. They haven't been skint, have they? They didn't live in the tenements. This is incredible. Dad's side, you can tell, like, there's a lot of characters that are funny. There's banter. My mum's side's very, like, Scotty Rhodes, brash, like, very...
Did you think that from your mum's side?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. My nana was like... Better be careful what I say. She was. Let's say she wasn't warm. No, okay. She wasn't warm at all.
If we go down to your great-granddad, who was a guy called James Davies, who was born in 1909. He married a lady called
Ruddock.
Elizabeth Ruddock.
Yes. And
I was able to go again down that side of your family tree. But I've managed to get a picture of your great-great-grandfather Ruddock. Would you like to see him?
Oh. Looks a bit like my brother Terry. He actually does. There's a thing in work, and they got all the names of the people who worked there, and there was a girl, Sharon Ruddock.
Right.
I went, and I seen her, and I went, because like we seen a little bit of this.
Yeah.
It was like, I might be related to you. And she went, oh, I don't know. And it turns out we are.
Well, I've managed to trace that side of your tree back, way back, and your family end up here.
In Manchester?
So when we trace them right far back, we end up in Manchester. So Thomas Ruddock was born in 1818.
So they're from Manchester?
In Manchester.
So the Ruddocks are from Manchester?
So the Ruddocks descend from Manchester.
Oh, God. I mean, it's not far, like, but still. What's them days?
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Because I imagine that, Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
Manchester. How does that sit in your family tree?
Nah, I've got nothing against Manchester. Wow, so I'm a bit mank.
You are?
I did live in Manchester, but I didn't like it. I left.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you live in Manchester?
Like 3 months.
Wow.
I was living with this girl, left in the middle of the night.
Oh
I couldn't handle it here anymore, I'm sorry.
We are nearly getting to the end. We've got 4 minutes left. I just want to ask you a couple more questions. How have you found it today?
It's an unusual feeling. Because I don't know these people, but they build up who I am.
Mm.
So they are what become before me. And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here. I don't know them. But I'm proud of the guy who was saving people. I think the fella who's... is it Bernard, was it?
Yeah.
No, Dempsey.
Dempsey,
He
William
was a character.
Dempsey.
I could just see him in my head. You could write a comedy about that guy. And yeah, it's just... I've got this knowledge now.
Mm.
You know, and it's amazing. Yeah.
If you could tonight invite anybody from your family tree, maybe somebody we spoke about, maybe somebody we haven't, for dinner, who would it be, why, and what would you cook?
It'd be William Dempsey.
Yeah.
But he could only stay for one night because he'd probably do me head in.
Okay.
And I'll probably just get him a bottle of vodka because he probably wouldn't want to eat anyway.
John May, thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Oh, Michaela, thank you.
Hope you've
I'm going to miss
it.
you. I'm going to miss our chats.
Honestly, Elizabeth Dowdall. I feel like I'm going to have to go to a psychic or a medium and see if they can get in touch with her and just find out.
She's probably having flings in heaven. She's a hussy.
I did not say that.
I did.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that is it for this week's podcast. I really hope you enjoyed my chat with John May. I must say a huge thank you to Becky from Whitney Antiques for sponsoring this podcast, and also to Sam from The Power of One. I couldn't make these podcasts without you, so thank you very much. A massive thank you as well to my 2 production assistants, Javaria Salim and Lucy Stotts. Thank you for your hard work and your patience on this episode. And a huge thank you to you, every single one of you, that takes the time to download or even watch, if you're watching it on YouTube, this podcast. I really appreciate it. Please remember to like and subscribe this podcast. And until next time, have a great week researching.